And welcome to episode 11 of the Electrified Marina podcast. I'm your host and producer, Brooks Lawson.
And Eric Pinzon from Electrified Marina.
Today is August the 10th, 2025. This show is brought to you by us at Electrified Marina. Please check out electrifiedmarina.com and call or email us if you decide you have interest in buying a new electric boat or repowering your current boat with an electric powertrain. The best way to interact with the show is to post comments in the comment section on YouTube. Eric, do you want to take us away with some announcements?
Yeah, we had an awesome event at Lake Anna a week ago. It was sold out. We filled up all the seats. It was kind of the perfect waterway for us. It was the right size, and half the lake does not have marina fuel. We're going to be doing another event there here in a month, September 27th. Obviously, this podcast, we're announcing our ZeroJet partnership and a lot of exciting things there, kind of an untapped market here in the U.S. And we just partnered with. We're working on Volair. Actually, this company, they've got a really cool catamaran coming out. Smaller pleasure boat, 23 feet, but it's got hydrofoil assists. They've got a very interesting powertrain. More news to come on that. I'll be going down there here in a couple weeks to kind of debut the boat.
Perfect. And our guests today are Chris Baird and Ian Pearce from ZeroJet. Chris or Ian, whoever wants to take this question, why don't you start us off with a little bit about who is ZeroJet, what is the company, what do you sell, and what are kind of like the origins of the company? Just a quick.
Yep, very quick. ZeroJet is a marine electric jet business based in New Zealand. Everything is designed, engineered, and manufactured in New Zealand. For those who don't know, New Zealand's at the bottom of the world, one stop before the Antarctic, but very, very strong marine background in regards to the products that you would have seen around the world. We've got a tight team, and I think we're in our fourth year or fifth year.
And you're launching a new partnership with Electrified Marina. Can you guys tell us about that?
Absolutely. So watching the market over the last solid year or so, we were absolutely going to enter into America. We're in Europe and we're in other parts of the world. America was one that you need to take seriously, and we were watching Electrified Marina, and my opinion is they're absolutely ahead of the market for marine electrification, which is fantastic. I love what they're doing. I love their passion. I love what they're doing out in the marketplace, which is where they're taking products out to customers and getting them, as we all say in the industry, bums on seats to get people out in the water and actually experience it. And I think that's really something that really tickled our fancy at ZeroJet. So thankfully, Eric and Aaron are wanting to partner with us, and we've signed the agreement, and we're about to put a press release out in the next day or so.
Excellent. Eric, anything you want to talk about that?
We're super excited. It's a market that's pretty untapped in terms of jet propulsion. I was just talking to somebody from Europe in the PWC space about jet propulsion, and I brought up ZeroJet in the conversation. And I said, even if you guys don't enter into PWC, like ZeroJet's kind of the only game in town. And it's such a huge market for it. I'm not sure the statistics in terms of volume. But there is so many people that run jet boats out there, and whether it's the tender and the dinghy market or the small pleasure boating market, whether it's the maintenance side, the safety side, the draft of the boats, it is an untapped market right now. And the electric already has a long way to go just on the propulsion side, but in terms of jet, it's like I would say a few years behind. There's nobody competing in that space yet, so we're pretty excited to bring it to market. And I mean, we've got a list, probably a dozen people waiting to go for rides on these boats. It's exciting.
Great.
Awesome. And ZeroJet has just, at no cost to their customers, upped the power output from 18 to 22 kilowatt on the existing platform. Can you tell us about that?
Ian?
That's absolutely true. So we started off at this 18 kilowatt, and we found that we'd been quite conservative, essentially. So we've moved on from there, and a lot of people came back to us and said, we just want to have that little bit more weight on the plane. We want to have a little bit more energy from our boat. So we heard the market, and we stepped back in, and we've developed a 22 kilowatt hour, a 22 kilowatt system, no extra weight, no extra cost to the customer, just your value, right?
And that's 25, 30 horsepower or so for everyone here in the US. And it's kind of perfect too. We always talk about markets and where, where electric propulsion makes sense. Because I try to be brutally honest with this stuff. And, if you're going to go offshore racing or, offshore fishing or, wakeboarding 8 hours a day, like there's times where it doesn't make sense. But in like the dinghy and tender market, you're not taking one of those little boats very far. And if you're putting it on the back of your sailboat or your yacht, you're going in and out of the harbor. It's the perfect use case for it. And then it's funny because in terms of the charging side of things, the amount of yachts and huge sailboats that have gensets running overnight, they already have the ample power there to charge these things. So it's kind of this perfect match for it in a way. And not to mention not having to carry gasoline on board, the flammability of it, the liability of it. Most of those are powered by diesels already, so it's just one extra fuel they'd have to worry about, and now it reduces that.
So I've just found out that 22 kilowatts is 29.5 horsepower. So just under 30 horsepower.
Nice.
There you go. Technical upgrade.
I like it.
And then you're also going to be debuting a 30 kilowatt version soon.
That's a scoop. So, first publicly noted that we're going to go to the world at a place called METS, which people in the industry know. It's a marine equipment trade show. It's the biggest in the world. It's November in Amsterdam. And we will be publicly releasing the 30 kilowatt in the same format of the jet we have today. And again, we've just had some brilliant designers that design engineered something that we're able to keep pushing, and it keeps taking. So we're thrilled. Again, great credit to the New Zealanders in regards to what they've designed. It really is a special piece of gear. So that allows us to go from 15 kilowatts for our smaller OCT tenders, which are lightweight carbon fibre, up to 22 kilowatts for your sort of standard, again, tenders, and now up to 30 kilowatts. 30 kilowatts for American terms is around about 40 horsepower.
Nice. And in terms of form factor, battery capacity, like what is that on terms of the propulsion side, maybe not battery capacity, what does that look like, the additional weight or space that's required?
The actual space itself is exactly the same as what we have today. So there's no extra weight. The only extra weight is actually the batteries.
Nice.
And obviously, as you up your power, you up your batteries. So we'll go from 5 kilowatts for our 15 to 10 kilowatts for our 22 to 15 kilowatt hour for our 30 kilowatts.
Yeah. So in terms of boat availability on what size boat is that going to go on stepping into the 40 horsepower space?
Yep. So we'll comfortably do that sort of low, let's say I'm trying to put it into feet. so it'll be from 3.2 meters, which is about 10 feet, up to about 4.2. I don't want to go any higher because, again, we get into that weight situation. 4.2 is around about, 14, 15 feet. And again, if we're talking about a tender, a small rip, for want of a better word, that 3.2 to 4.2 is actually a really nice, sweet spot. And there's quite a lot of boats in that area.
Yeah, it's interesting when we're chatting with a lot of the people that have been reaching out over the last couple of weeks, when we're telling them the OC, the 330 is coming, it's like exactly what everybody wants. It's right in that sweet spot of the dimensions they're looking for. So we're pretty excited to get it. And so it sounds like we'll have one at Annapolis available for sea trials. So it's going to be an exciting event. We're usually busy as it is. This year is going to be, last year we had people coming from the show that said, hey, you're the busiest part of the show. What are you giving out? What are you guys doing over here? And we were just giving out boat rides. We weren't handing out swag or, anything exciting. We were just giving rides. But the buzz it creates in a show, especially like Annapolis, is exciting. And so this upcoming year, we're going to have more boats and the OC tender. So it's going to be an awesome show.
Great. It was interesting to see the IBI, which is a trade magazine, for those that don't know, for marine, been around for many years or many decades. and they had a survey on Friday, actually, where they had 54% of US boat owners would consider going electric. However, 25% said they definitely would. Now, surveys are surveys. However, that is what we're feeling, is that sort of, I would have said 20 to 25 if someone had asked me. That means that we, as the people that have the products, need to make sure that we do with Electrified Marina and others, is to get the message out and to get people to come and talk to us and have a look at what we've got, and importantly, get onto a boat and test it out.
Yeah, and it's amazing how the lack of awareness that's still there. We're at our marina at Willoughby in Norfolk on Saturday. I was delivering literally in the middle of an orientation with a jet ski, and a guy walks over, and he's like, "Hey, what are these?" Like, "Oh, we deliver electric boats." And he says, "Well, but what about the jet ski?" I said, "It's electric too." He said, "But where do you put the gas in?" I said, No, it's electric." He said, "No, where do you?" So it's a hybrid. I said, "No, it's 100% electric." It's amazing how far we have to go. You know, I always tell people in terms of the market, like the amount of boats that are out there, the manufacturers that are out there. I always try to relate it to electric cars and that adoption curve, and you know where that's at. And with the number of boats available, there's, you know, I would say it's 2014-ish. But in terms of awareness and education, I mean, we're like circa 2008. You know, most people have never seen one in person, let alone know they exist. So we have such a long way to go in this space.
And with our, you know, concentration at, you know, the tender market as such, or conversely, when we say a tender, I mean, I had a 4.2 meter Highfield, which was the main boat. You know, we're down on the water here at Sanctuary Cove in Queensland, and we have a dock out the front of the house. And for quite a while, the only boat we had was this 4.2 meter tender or rib. It was the main boat, and plenty of people here in southeast Queensland, you know, have a small boat in that sort of size just to get around and enjoy the waterways. You know, electric is, I mean, again, once you've done it, there's no going back. I mean, that's the great thing about it. Once you've done it, there's no going back. And the greatest thing about it is no propeller. You know, I really have to emphasize that. No propeller at the back of the boat is really important. And it actually makes it a very much more safer situation around, you know, kids and around anyone, to be honest, to be able to get in and out of the boat. And once you've done the jet, one of the things when we go cruising and boating and whatever is if you do have a tender, is being able to get over those, you know, low shallow reefs. And, you know, do you know, Ian, what our draft is? It's tiny. What is the draft under a boat?
In the region of less than 100 mil at a lot of the time. You know, like it depends how much weight you put in the boat, but very, very shallow drafts. And we generally aim for an inlet. We need to be deep enough at the back to take our inlet. So generally we try and take the boat so the back end of the boat is deep enough to suck water, essentially. And beyond that, it doesn't need to be any lower than that. So
yep. And so that's really important. And if you've got tidal areas where you're going in, again, boating, and you've got that really shallow area, and, you know, what you can see is people that have the traditional outboard, they have to lean over the back, pull the outboard up, and then row in, right? And sometimes that could be, you know, 200 yards, 300, 400, 500 yards because of the tides. So, you know, there's a whole range of great reasons why, you know, having a jet is a good thing. An electric makes it even better. Put it all together. I think that's why we're getting the queries we're getting all over the world. And from my point of view, Eric, it has just gone bang in for us in the last, I'm going to say, really, 4 months. I can't believe saying that, but something's happened.
Yeah.
It's just gone click. And suddenly we've really got this uptake. And one of the big ones for us is the battery technology. You know, we have a friend in New Zealand who's designed a marine electrification product, and it's taken, they did that about 16 years ago. It's taken for the battery technology to catch up with the other. So we're the same. So the battery case where we're going to solid state batteries or heading towards semi-solid state batteries is a game changer. And I think I read this morning Toyota has just announced their situation with solid-state batteries. So the Japanese have been hiding away and doing their bit. That is going to really put things on its ear. So the great thing about it for our customers coming into electric boating is that it's just going to get better. If we look at where we are on naturally aspirated engines, that stuff's been around for 80 years. So, 100 years. And the case is that, what we're seeing now is this massive improvement. And that's what's exciting. And that's what's exciting for our customers is it just gets better. So, and now we can do increases like we just did. We took someone from 18 kilowatts to 22. That's about a 20% increase in output power. And we were able to do it with a software upgrade and an extra fuse and one cable. And that was it.
And it's funny you mentioned that. I was just going back and forth with somebody on TikTok, and he's saying how gas engines are perfect and we don't need to mess with them. And I always realize somebody's ignorance when they say that, because they don't understand energy efficiency and how much is absolutely wasted in heat. And gas engines, like on average 25, maybe 30%. And now we have motors that are in the 90% range. And, we not even extraction, processing, anything that goes on before the gasoline gets to the spout. A gas engine is just abysmal in terms of energy efficiency. And I don't think most people are smart enough to realize that or understand how much energy just gets absolutely wasted. And like you said, we're at the early stages of this stuff. And I try not to get excited about battery breakthroughs because they've just been happening every day for the last couple of years. But something's gonna come to fruition here soon, and I'm not sure how quickly that's gonna trickle down to the boating market. We're probably gonna be a couple years after BYD and Toyota get cars on the road, doing it. But it really is only going to get better. And at that point, in 5 or 10 years from now, when these people are ready to upgrade their battery packs and the prices are coming down, volumes going up, the amount of R&D that's getting dumped into either semi-solid or solid state right now is the biggest it's ever been. And so once we get some economies of scale in our favor, it's going to get to a point here very soon where it's not going to make sense to buy a gas outboard, or buy anything with gas propulsion. Obviously, if you want the nostalgia and you want the fumes or, whatever it is, there's going to be those diehard gas guys that are clenching it till death. But for everybody else, most of the common world, it's going to be like, wait, this is less maintenance. I wake up to a full charge. It's silent. And it's going to be a no-brainer. And that's when this industry is just going to go gangbusters. And I'm pretty excited to see that coming, because it's even some of these announcements you see, and it's like 8 times as energy dense or 10 times as energy dense. Let's just even double the energy density of what we have right now would be so disruptive. But the crazy part is the amount of opportunities that it works for people's use case with the current tech that we have. But a lot of these people don't know it exists. So it's I don't know. I try to. You go down a rabbit hole when you start talking about energy density and where things are going. But it's kind of crazy to think about where we are and what's going to happen in the next few years. We're going to be looking back at this and laughing, I think.
I think you touch on a very, very important point there, Eric, which is we worry a lot about range anxiety, but quite often the solution is not give people more range. You don't need more range. It quite often compromises the boat in so many other ways to put more batteries in for the sake of putting more batteries in. So many use cases, plenty of power. The way I see it is you can approach it from 3 ways. You can put more batteries in, you can charge those batteries in more places, or you can convince people you've got enough already. And I think the last one is the easiest, because that's so often the case is true. Then it's around to that, where do I charge? How do I charge? What do I do with my charging? As long as they're convinced that they can fill up. It's the same with a gas car. If you drive a gas car, you don't expect to go and if you do 1,000 Ks in your gas car, you expect to fill up, but you can. So as long as we've got that in place and they know they can fill up and they know that they've got this fixed amount and they know what they use, then I think we can really tackle that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we're getting ready to release a blog post. She might have just sent it out. I don't recall, but I was just going over it, and it was about range anxiety. But the biggest part of it is that it's that education side, and it's these people that think an electric car needs to have 700 miles of range before they'll buy one. And whenever I hear somebody, and it's usually more convincing in person, and it's like, how many miles do you drive in a day? What's your round trip plus a trip to the gym and the grocery store and dropping your kid off and all of this? And you add all this together, and it's like, oh, that is 40 miles or 30
Yeah.
miles. And it's like, you're not doing hundreds of miles per day. And oh, by the way, you wake up every day with a full charge. So I think it's just finding the people with the critical thinking skills to realize they don't need tons of range. And then they say, oh, well, what about this road trip? And it's like, oh, to grandmother's house on Thanksgiving, or Christmas. It's like, so you're buying a car for the 0.001% of your use case, not the 99.99%. It's just,
Yeah.
There's not, I don't know, there's some people that don't grasp the skills to look at that logic and see how skewed or flawed it is. But when you really like pull up a map and you say, okay, here's where I go in my day. And I love it doing it at boat shows. And they're like, oh, it won't work for me. It's like, oh, you offshore fishing? They're like, no. It's like, oh, you have a pontoon and you hang out at a cove or a sandbar all day long.
Yeah.
But it's just getting down to the nitty gritty of what their day looks like and how they really use it. And
Yeah.
especially in the tender market, it's like, wait, you have a huge sailboat that you go around the world in, and you only anchor out in harbors, and you need to go into the marina and back. Like, that's your use case for your tender. But I think that world of this of sailing, those people, that are out there in the blue water, they realize range. They know their numbers. They've done it. They've calculated it. They know what their fuel capacity is on board, their battery capacity if it's a hybrid boat or all electric sailboat. But those people have already done the math. They've crunched the numbers. And I think that market is going to be easier to tap into than anything. I relate it a lot to pilots. When I talk to a pilot, I know very quickly, because those guys they're aware of reserves and miles and energy consumption. And I'm ignorant to just being in the US market, but we're not taught much in terms of physics, or we're not exposed to a lot of it. So a lot of people don't grasp that side of things. So it's I don't know, it's not as common as I think it is in the rest of the world. It's a steep learning curve.
So, Chris, do you want to tell us about Tech Tracks? What is Tech Tracks, and how are you related to them?
So we, just prior to Christmas, we merged another marine electric business into ZeroJet. Company's called Tech Tracks. Tech Tracks is a fully electric amphibious product. So it's the wheels that you see underneath the boat. Very, very strong in New Zealand. The original one back there was Sea Legs. A lot of people would know Sea Legs. There's another company called Anura, which does it, again, based in New Zealand. And then we were based in New Zealand as well. So we've done, well over 10 years working on the wheels. But again, our direction was we went full electric. The other guys have gone electric with hydraulics. As soon as you add the hydraulics in, you lose a hell of a lot of power at the wheels. We're saying somewhere around about 40%, we have more power. So we have an electric motor in each of the hubs. So if you've got 3 wheels, then we've got 3 hubs, or motors, electric motors that are actually in the hubs, fully waterproof, and drive the boat. So that's the Tech Track side of it. However, we're just launching as we talk what's called a boat launcher. That's trademarked. And the boat launcher is as it sounds. It's not a trailer, but think of a trailer. It's an electric boat launcher that launches your boat. And this is your boat, so you don't have to go and buy an amphibious boat. And you have a full remote. So you hop on your boat. It's in your front yard. You drive it down to your lake or the beach or over the sandhill in front of you into the water. And then when your boat comes off the boat launcher, you actually remote that back onto the beach. And that can be up to half a mile away. Take off, go and do your boating, come back. And when you're offshore a little bit, then the same thing, you drive your boat launcher back into the water from your boat. Drive your boat onto the launcher, and you can have them coming in quite a lot deeper because you don't have a car to back it in. Come on into it, and then as soon as you're onto that launcher, you're now, for want of a better word, like an amphibious boat. And then you drive it back up up to your house or down the beach or whatever it is you have. So we are talking about people that live on a waterfront type property. Can go down roads, etc., but not normally. And the range is up to 3 miles, 3-4 miles, which is plenty. And really, what we're trying to do is to help those customers that actually are in areas where it's a bugger to go through going to your boat ramp down the road. It's chockers, you can't do it. And the other one is for older customers, that actually want to just go out by themselves and actually go out boating, not have to have someone, parking a car and doing the rest of it. They just want to go out and have a fish or do whatever. So that's called the boat launcher. We're looking at doing something in America very, very early next year. We're launching at Melbourne Boat Show in Australia in October, and we'll have 10 sold prior to Christmas, because that's what we're doing at the moment to produce. We are going to get those 10 out into New Zealand. As soon as we do those, when we've just been testing these on beaches, people are coming along and taking pictures and getting all excited. It's something that's quite different. So lots of people thought about this. This is a full production. We'll be working with quality trailer manufacturers around the world, supplying them the kit. They then build the launcher in the format that they would like, and we'll handle up to 4 tons. 4 tons is a good sized boat. You're probably talking about a good solid, 26, 28 footer, easy. And so it's pretty exciting.
Huh. And it just so happens that all the 3 of those companies are based out of New Zealand?
Yep. So the boat launcher part is TechTrax. So it's a TechTrax boat launcher. So it's the 2 companies. And we merged the 2 together because, again, in this marine electrification area, both companies were 48 volts. Both companies were doing the same thing with batteries. Both companies were doing something with the little screen. So to be able to get those, those synergies between the 2 companies has been great. And within 7 months, we are miles ahead of where we were just last year. So it's pretty exciting. I personally love the American market. I've had some success over there with a number of other marine companies, and got a lot of friends, and and I love the shows. I'll be over at Fort Lauderdale Boat Show as an example. It's just a great place to do business, and I'm an Aussie, but I run for some reason New Zealand marine companies, and it's exciting to take something into the American market, because when you get into that American market, it is just enormous compared to anywhere else in the world. And you guys, you do boating, that's, you get into boating like wow. So which is really, really good.
Yeah, you mentioned the 48 volt side of things. Let's jump into a little bit really quick. We kind of skipped over at the tech side of ZeroJet. So 48 volt system, it's 5 kilowatt hour modules, and then in terms of maintenance, what does that look like? I've ridden on errands before. It's a blast, but I'm curious, the nitty gritty of the propulsion system itself.
Absolutely. So to date, as you mentioned, 48 volts, we wanted to keep it as low voltage as possible while still delivering some punch. Anything below that, and we're going to start getting into that, really struggling to get any fun power out of it. 48 volts is generally considered to be the kind of highest level you can be a touch safe voltage. So we went for that. The whole system is also, to add to that safety, is also IP67. So you can essentially chuck the whole thing in the sea. We were really concerned that small boats are often quite wet boats as well. Like once you get in a bit of surf, you're going to get some splashes over the side and that sort of thing. And we didn't want any potential safety issues. Yeah, we went for that 48 volts for that reason. In terms of batteries, as you say, we've had 2 so far. We've had released a 5 kilowatt hour pack, which is split into 2.5 kilowatt hour batteries. And there's also a 10 kilowatt hour pack available. As we've just discussed, the battery market is so progressive at the moment. Watch this space, essentially. There's our battery systems will be getting more and more flexible as we go over the year. There'll be more and more options. There'll be more and more integration configurations that people can go for. And yeah, from other technical point of view, in terms of trying to think what your other question was on.
Any maintenance or any
maintenance.
inspections required? Is there any maintenance at all to it? There's, I don't know, different manufacturers that we deal with, and sometimes it's like, oh yeah, they're doing this once a year, or each time you get on the boat. I'm curious what that looks like.
So we have aimed. The goal would be no maintenance, right? That's what everybody wants. When you have moving things in saltwater, that is a big ask. However, day to day, very low maintenance. When you bring your boat back, hose it down. That's it. There's no the cooling loop is all closed loop. We have a keel cooler that just disperses the heat into the water as it's running over and into our intake.
Beautiful.
The elements that you would need to service have been made deliberately quite easy to do so. So taking the pump off is 4 bolts. Just slot the whole thing off. If you get anything stuck in the grate, we have a reverse mode that you can press a button and blast it out backwards. If you can't do that, you just hook the grate off. You can get in that way, or you take the jet pump off with 4 bolts if you're really stuck, and you can take it out that way. Things like bearings, they're all sealed, obviously not any seawater exposure to them. So they're a very, very low maintenance part. I'm not going to say that they will be forever. It depends how long you keep your tender for. But
yeah. And a lot of it, I've talked to some of these some Taiga jet ski owners, and there's some guys that ride them once a week, and then there's some people that are on them every single day.
Exactly.
And so it's always interesting to see. But I mean, some of these guys, it's like they hose it off, and we'll check in with them. We delivered some over a year ago. And it's like, hey, you need anything? Are you using it? Because we don't have telematics access. The OEMs do. But I'm not looking at it remotely, so we're curious and we do check-ins with people, and it's like, hey, how's it going? You still using this thing? What's it look like? They're like, yeah, I use it every day. I'm like, okay, awesome. Just checking in on you. But it's really cool to see, and I think you're going to see that too with a lot of the liveaboards and a lot of these people on these catamarans and yachts that are using it. It's going to be like their daily commuter when they're going in, if they're at a mooring or at a harbor.
I mean, from a product development point of view, that's what really excites us. We want people out there and enjoying it. That's what it's for. It's there to be used. And as I say, it should be as svelte of a process as possible. You shouldn't need to do too much to get your enjoyment out of it. We've done the work, so other people don't need to. That's the goal. And if you do get to the point where anything needs servicing, you can bring it into our dealers, or you can. And for things like taking the motor off is 4 bolts. You just slot it backwards, very easy. Whole thing comes apart very easily, everything is, all of the components attached together through plugs. So it's pretty much a tool-free assembly for assembling your batteries to your jet pod and your display and your steering and that sort of thing. Our tiller system is probably the one thing that has something that you would, every once in a while, it has a grease nipple. You squirt a bit of grease in there and you're good to go, just to make sure your tiller remains nice and smooth. And really the whole thing should be a very low impact for the users.
That's awesome. It's crucial too when people are bouncing around the Caribbean, don't have parts nearby, or when there is maintenance or serviceability needs. Being able to pop off a motor with 4 bolts is pretty impressive compared to a full day job or anything too extensive. Very cool.
And I think it's important the backwash on the jet. So it's just a button we have. We've always had it. So just if you get a bit of seaweed stuck in your jet, you simply push the button, and it just reverses the jet and just blows it out. And that's pretty well, to be honest. I can't even remember the last time we've had an issue. So
that's good.
We've been very good in regards to that. Some people think jets are a problem, and maybe in the old days they were, but certainly from what we've had in our experience, I mean, we've got people that have been traveling around the world on their cruising catamarans for a couple of years, a year, and no news is good news. So that's always a good thing. From our point of view, that's what we aim for, is no news is good news.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. I just posted a video of a flux motor, and I was like, "Hey guys, look how unique this motor is. It's got an integrated belt inside this thing." And all these guys are, "Oh, that'll never work." Literally hundreds of comments, and it's like you have zero knowledge of the internal workings of this thing. And Flux Motors has thousands of hours on these things. Like, but everyone is just, they're afraid, or they're just oblivious of what they don't know. But they're so quick to hate on it, or just to deny that it's usable. I don't know. It's always funny when you see that. And in terms of new tech, I think people are just triggered by what they're not used to.
Yeah, there's a lot of smart people at Princeton University and at Flux. I think they might have it somehow.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. What I'm curious on you mentioned the 30 kilowatt announcement. Is there anything else you can share that's in the future for ZeroJet in terms of market expansions, or what else we might see here in the near future?
Yes, but I think probably the most important part is for a company like ZeroJet is to partner with the right boat builders that are building. Either we're talking about ribs, or we're talking about, carbon fiber tenders, or just general tenders, fiberglass. That's probably the exciting part. That's probably what's really happened over the last, 6 to 7 months. And if I said to you that it's turning into, nearly a weekly arrangement where we're talking to another prospective partner. But one of those ones that on the electric jet side is where some people are that, it's a bit too expensive, and that's fine. We understand that. And so everything we've done has been about how do we reduce the cost out of both the batteries, of course, which was the lowest hanging fruit, and then the jet itself. And we've done that. And so we need to obviously do this with the situation of keeping the product, reliable and doing what it should do. But at the same time, we've also got to make it price competitive for the standard customer to be able to buy. So we're doing a deal with a very well-known rib manufacturer that we would hope to announce sooner rather than later. And when I say that, maybe in the next 2 weeks.
In the
we're
US?
trying to aim at, I can't say. And we're trying to aim at, cracking an amount of money, and getting this whole package out. And it would probably be close to nearly half of what we were selling not that long ago.
That is huge.
And then suddenly, that opens us up. That takes out that real, it's a bit expensive, and that's fine, to the stage of, I could afford that. It's what? It's 20% dearer than an outboard with the whole package, but I've now got an electric jet. So all of the advantage of having the electric jet side of it. So that's the exciting part. There's another one that we're dealing with a joint venture, which is something that, will happen later in the year in regards to being able to put some information out, but a boat that would come out next year. So all of these things are going on. We've got another manufacturer in China, another one in South Africa, another one in Croatia. So they're all in their different layers, and all their boats are quite different. But incidentally, tenders, there's millions of tenders around the world, obviously, to associate with the boats that are out there. And there's, my opinion, this shift that's happening now, especially when we look at the carbon fiber side with companies like OCT, are great, great looking products. They can handle a bit of roughness, and they're light, and they're really light. And the great thing that electric likes is light. So we'll be able to tick 2 boxes really quite strongly. Light and strong is where carbon fiber comes into it. And there's a lot of movement in that. And for the end users, for the customers, the boaters, there's some really exciting stuff that's coming out in the next year that gives you something that's quite sexy that you'll have a lot of fun on. And yes, it's with your mothership. But hey, the tender becomes, a real fun component. So, we're quite bullish about where this is going. we've concentrated on this. We haven't got out of our lane. This is what we do. And so just wait till you see it, very soon, what's going to come. And then the last one is that we are looking at seeing whether we could even push it out further from 30 kilowatts. So now we're really pushing, technology or whatever. But, all this does is allows us to just get into a little bit bigger boat. So every time we're at something, so if we're at full, say 13 feet or whatever, we want to get to 16 feet, then we do want to hold around that 48 volts. That's our thing at the moment. We don't want to go outside of that. There's lots and lots of companies that have outside of 48 volts. That's fine. If they want to come and compete with us in 48 volts, and good luck.
So. Yeah, I like it. You bringing that up. It's bringing up the side of collaborations. And by the way, thanks for the 3 cliffhangers. But in terms of being brand agnostic, that's something we try to pride ourselves on. We'll work with anybody that makes a good product. And it's amazing because you guys, as a propulsion company, you can kind of, there might be some modifications on the hull side or the mounting or transom side of things, but you guys really can work with, any boat builder that's willing to adapt that puts your propulsion system on. So it's, I don't know, it leaves a much bigger market than if you were the tender builder, so you guys can essentially adapt to any boat that can fit those horsepower requirements. And thinking about it, I'm going to put you in touch with these guys because they've got, I think, a platform that might fit well with. They've got dual outboards on the cat that they're doing, but because of the efficiency of the hull and the foil assist side of things, they don't need a ton of power. So I'll put you in touch after this, after we finish chatting. But
that'd be great.
No, it's exciting. You mentioned the price point, being a barrier to entry and being able to accomplish that without economies of scale. Because, everyone always compares it. Oh, I can get it, a Honda outboard or this, Yamaha for this price. Like, they're making millions of those. Okay. Like we're in the dozens and hundreds of our outboards. Like let it give us a couple decades, give us some economies of scale, and we can compete on price parity. But right now in the early stages, most of the time we can't do that. But it sounds like, you guys are going to be pretty damn close. That's going to be exciting. And what usually barriers to entry are the price and the range, and range becomes a non-issue in this space. So it's, I don't know, pretty excited about this here. I'm going to mark my calendar. We got 2 weeks from today, so I'm going to hold you to it.
Yeah.
I'm going to weigh in on the price point. The first question, I think, if I was listening, what I think was, if you've reduced the price point, what have you reduced? And I'm gonna weigh in that we haven't. That's what's great. That's what's great about our price point, is that we're now not only cheaper, more powerful, easier to fit for boat builders, but we're also lighter. So the system is now a good percentage lighter as well. So we ticked all those boxes. I say we, the engineering team that sat out there did incredibly well on that, and they've really gone a long way with it. So
yeah, they have.
And weight is such a crucial piece with this, whether it's on the back of your catamaran or you're dragging it up a beach. I mean, for a lot of these liveaboards, these sailors, that's a very real world use case, 2 people dragging this thing up the beach. And when it's 300 to 400 pounds versus 700 to 800 pounds, I mean, that is a massive difference. That's a quality of life difference when they're doing it every day. I've done, I don't know, probably a half dozen of these discovery calls with some people interested in the ZeroJets. And that is always a very big talking point, whether it's the OCT side of things or the propulsion side of things. It goes a long way.
Yeah. I've got a 28-foot Sea Ray, an old one, because that's all I can afford, because I don't get paid much. And so, and we've got a little tender on the back, with a little 4 horsepower outboard. And I'm not getting any younger. And when you try and take that 4 horsepower from the back of the boat down into the tender and everything's moving around or whatever, it is, mind the French, it is bloody heavy. And it's only 4 horsepower. And it's absolutely a pain in the backside. So, to think that, we can get away from having that, or conversely, you can get a nice light electric outboard, which would be the way I would go, if that's what I was doing, 100%. And, when you see people struggling with those and then filling it up with gas, and spilling the gas and, having to have gas on a boat when you shouldn't have to have gas on the boat. And especially when we talk about cruising boaters, with something a little bit bigger, they're diesel. And suddenly now we have to have gas on the boat. And that is probably the big thing in regards to the tender market, is that we take that whole situation about having another type of fuel on the boat that is actually can be quite dangerous at times as well. So we just get rid of it. And so that's where a lot of the bigger boat manufacturers are looking at for their tenders. That's why we're getting approached. And I suppose what's happened, as I said, in that last 6 months or so, is we're getting approached. We're not having to bash their doors down. They're coming to us and saying our customers are wanting this. And so, we're really on the cusp of this exploding, now. It's happening. So so we're going to live that and get all the advantages of that. But remember, when we get more people out there running around with electric jets, it just creates more people wanting it. And just like Teslas used to drive around and suddenly there'd be 3 Teslas on a street, it's exactly where we're going to go with this. So, so it's buckle in and let's get into it and have fun.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. It's this ripple effect of exposure, and it gets people talking. And it's not at the boat shows. It's when people are bouncing around the Caribbean or at the BVI and they see this boat and they pull up and they just start asking them questions. I hear it from Aaron all the time, and I just sold a Taiga, delivered a Taiga to a guy yesterday, and he got stopped, and he said he had 4 different conversations with people on his way home to South Carolina, and one of them is getting ready to come up for a sea trial. But it's a ripple effect of exposure that we need. And you mentioned the on board with the diesel and the fuel. It's like they already have the gen sets on there. They already have the capacity. Charging this thing slowly overnight at a couple of kilowatts isn't going to be difficult. But being able to remove the hazard and the liability of gasoline. And it's funny because people always bring up lithium ion batteries, and it's like we've got that pretty well solved. And we're at the early stages of this, but it's all they're IP67 rated. Like, it's going to be okay. And gas boats are still, you said, exploding, and it was kind of funny because it's like that's happening all the time, and it's just kind of accepted. Someone forgets a blower switch. Just in Cleveland, literally yesterday, it ended up with 2 or 3 boats on fire because someone forgot to run a blower. And thankfully nobody died. But imagine if electric boats were doing that every week during boating season. It was just accepted. And it's like, oh, yep, lost a few more. Like, they would be illegal. We wouldn't be selling these things. But it's like, oh, forgot his blower, lost a few boats. And that's, I don't know. I don't think people realize the hazards and how flammable gasoline is, and being able to remove that off of a ship, one of these cruisers that a lot of times it's not easy to find, when you're island hopping down there, like a lot of these people are. Gasoline isn't always readily available. I remember watching the Winds, and he was running around with jerry cans trying to fill up, and the gas stations didn't have gas. It was like kind of funny, but he's got a boat covered in solar and he's got diesel on for his gen set. Like, he would have been fine. But it's I don't know, it's interesting to see how the challenges change there.
And they were a good customer going with the Winds, in regards to it, while they had their their podcasts and stuff going on, and their online presence. They did a great job, and they loved their OCT, ZeroJet tender, and actually, really did a great thing, for us, and waved the flag, which was great. Actually, one of those things, just lastly, is that we did a range challenge because we've decided that we want to prove some points about what you can do, and Ian actually went out and did that. Ian, maybe just a quick run on what we did with the range challenge.
Yeah, so there's a couple of islands in the Hauraki Gulf, Rangitoto and Motutapu. They're actually just about joined in the middle, so you unfortunately can't do a lap of one. So we thought, well, we initially set out with this challenge, we'll go and do a lap of Rangitoto, and you really got to get the tides right to be able to get between the two, and then you end up. So we thought, we won't do that. We'll do both of them. We'll see what happens. And it's about 16, 17 knots around. 16, 17 nautical miles around the two islands. And I'll be entirely honest. We knew that if we were to go out and go full bore, we probably wouldn't make it all the way around. But we also knew that's not what people do with their boats. So we thought we'd go out and enjoy the ride. So we went out and we did at about 16 knots. We did about 8 nautical miles, just sort of hoofed it up to the top end of the island. And and then came on back round. And we went out on, it was not a perfect day. We decided that was good. We didn't want to, fake the conditions for people. And we had a little bit of chop and we came on back and there was a bit of wind. And we came back around the other side, we came back down a bit slower. And I'll confess with you, because we'd not done this and because there was quite a lot riding on it for us that we wanted to show that this was right, I sat there and I was like, I really, really hope we make this. And I'm not going to call it range anxiety because that's not something I want, But and then we just plodded back down the other side, about halfway down the other side, kind of having a chat about it and, start making bets on whether you're going to make it or not. And then we got back to the beach that we wanted. And that was fantastic. And we were like, great, we absolutely made it. And we got some great video with it. You should check it out on our website. There's a video showing the whole thing. The bit that got me, though, was once we were done, we'd finished and we'd wrapped up filming, and we, this was supposed to be a real stretch for our boat. We were like, well, the trailer's way back round the headland there. Should we just give it a go? We'll go and see if we can get back there. And so we plodded back round for another couple of nautical miles. Absolutely fine. And it's that thing of thinking you need more than you do. And we had, it was brilliant. Great day out. And as I say, ZeroJet.com, watch us doing it. It's a worthy watch, I would say.
And so next month we're going to do the English Channel. So on a tender. So Electric Jet cross the English Channel in September. So again, you're the first to hear that here. But we've been planning it. So, again, same sort of thing. What we're trying to do is to go to an area and go, when we're talking to someone in France or we're talking to someone, in the Mediterranean, we took it across the English Channel. So for someone that's using it as a tender, they go, so if it can go across the English Channel, probably can handle my, that's right. And so that one that we were just talking about was off Auckland. We want to do one, in America. We'd like to do that with you, Eric, and the team. And maybe it's something where, you go to one of those famous places, like Martha's Vineyard or something, somewhere where people can understand just generally because of where it is. Oh, you went from here to there and back. Oh, I know where you are. I get it. I can understand what it is. And you did that on one charge. So that's pretty cool. So we're definitely going to do one or two in America. But we'll get that English Channel one out the way next month.
I love it. It reminds me, Justin Dollinger from Aqua Electric and Emil from Elveni, they just went out on a solar-powered boat bouncing around Finland, and completely solar-powered. They went out on one charge and did like 200 miles. And they were camping on different islands and everything. But like you said, people need to see those real world use cases. They don't want to see it running in a lab, with lab results from it. It's like, no, here's a video, here's proof. This was utilized as anybody else would use it. And we just need more of that out there. And, I posted something recently on social media, and it's like, we need more content creators for this stuff. We've got to get the word out there, because without people seeing a day in the life of an electric boat owner, they're not gonna be able to relate. So I know I'm super excited to see it. I'm gonna go check it out on the website, add it to my list, and look forward to doing one here in the US. That'll be exciting.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
I think Chris has obviously mentioned the winds have been a great custom to us, flying the flag and that sort of thing. That's one thing that's been really good for us, though, is to actually put the boat long term in somebody's hands that we have regular contact with. And they did a video on range of the boat, and they were out there, they had it for months and months, and they said we never came across a situation where we needed more. They gave two very obscure examples with their old tender where they were like, we wanted to go on this huge day trip because of this really niche solution. And it's back to that what you were saying earlier of it's the 0.1% as opposed to the 99.9, which is it's really nice to have that confirmed in the real world. It's good. It's really good.
Yeah, you're talking about the 16 miles you guys did, and all I picture is a sailboat out in a mooring field. A half mile from shore, quarter mile from shore, just coming into the harbor, to the marina
Yep,
for the day,
that's it.
and that's the 99%. It really is,
Yep.
unless you're some crazy adventure down in the island somewhere, like you mentioned. But it's very much that real world use case, which it's perfect for. Yeah,
Great.
awesome.
All right, guys, we're coming in on our time. But before we go, I do want to ask you if you have any social accounts or any kind of websites you want to share with our audience.
Yep. Go on, Em.
We ZeroJet.com.
Website.
Dive into ZeroJet.com. It's excellent. Social accounts. Chris, you're going to have to help me out here. This is your field.
Yeah, marketing. Here we go. We've got marketing in the background. Look at this. Oh, there we go. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
All of them.
We got it all.
Yep.
All under ZeroJet. Or if you want to look up the boat launcher, you can actually just look up boat launcher. We actually own boatlauncher.com, and we've trademarked boat launcher worldwide. So yeah, you can look up that one as well. But certainly ZeroJet, online, there's quite a lot of videos and people, adding in what they've got. So we always like to get out as much as we possibly can. But yeah, so it's really, really important.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Chris and Ian, for joining us. You've been listening to Electrified Marina podcast, brought to you by Electrified Marina and electrifiedmarina.com. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please share with your friends and family. Please leave comment, questions, feedback, or potential guests in the comment section on YouTube, and that will help us to reach more people and spread our message. Thank you for watching and listening.
See you later.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right. Bye.